This is Community Connections with Anna Orr, airing on OROMIA11. Today I am so excited to be joining you all to talk about an amazing woman. Dr. VERNA Cornelia Price is here with us today, and we are going to talk about the power of people consulting, her brand new book, and her amazing work with girls all over the world, Girls in Action. This is going to be, I think, not only a lot of gems being dropped, but also a time of empowerment, and I hope it brings a wonderful, wonderful warmth to your heart as you watch. Stay tuned. I'm so excited to have you with me today. Dr. VERNA, can you please introduce yourself to our amazing viewers and talk just a little bit about what you do?
Absolutely. I'm Dr. VERNA Cornelia Price, and I do many different things. First of all, I'm a woman of God, I'm a wife, I'm a mother of 4. I am an author, I am a small business owner, I am a co-founder of a nonprofit, I'm a founder of a girls program. So I do a lot of different things in my core. I'm a teacher, love teaching the world. So that's a complicated question for me because there's so much that I do.
I think we can wrap it up by saying you're very busy.
I would say so.
I think you're very busy.
I call it managing my miracles.
I like that.
Yes, ma'am.
I like that. Managing your miracles. Mm-hmm. I'm excited to have you join me, not only during Black History Month, but the last time we saw each other in this capacity, you were at the National African Leadership Conference.
Yes.
And we were able to kind of connect a little bit there, and I was excited about having you come back. And since that time, you've had another book drop.
Yes.
As well as have launched some other programs and things going on. And I'd love to not only talk a little bit more about the book, but also the power of people consulting and Girls in Action.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Can you talk to me about what generally led you to doing work in leadership and managing?
Yeah, well, I think everything that we do somehow stems back to our childhood, right? And so as a young person, I was born and raised in the Bahamas, spent a lot of time with my grandmother, who was really kind of a caretaker of her grandchildren. And so at any given time, I was with my cousins, lots of cousins, and I have 76 first cousins.
Wow. And
so there are many of us. My mother is one of 10 children. And so I would live with my cousins, with my grandmother. We'd stay with my grandmother. And even as a young girl, I just became the teacher. So when I got a bicycle and learned to ride, I taught my cousins. When I learned to read, I taught my cousins. And I think what I was seeing was my grandmother was a leader, and she was the one, giving advice. She was, at that time when women weren't even pastors, she was an assistant pastor of her church. And she was teaching and she was preaching and she was, she was the wise woman. So when people were struggling, they'd come into our yard, on the island, they'd come in the yard and they'd ask, her name, my grandmother's name was Annie Nora Stewart. They called her Sister Annie. Sister Annie, and they'd come and sit and they'd talk and she would hold session. So I think now that I know what I was looking at, on this side of my life, I was looking at leadership. I was looking at a woman standing in a place of leadership for her community. And I think what happened, I know what happened, was that I caught it. I caught leadership. And so for as long as I can think of myself, whether I was a young girl, whether I was an immigrant coming into this country, in the United States, whether I was in college or working my Ph.D. or in the community, I have always found a way to step into leadership. And it's not like I brag about it or I even make a big deal of it. It's just that when I see that something needs to be done, I will step up and work on it and get it done. So I just think it's in me. I really do. I mean, I make a joke sometimes that as a teacher, if no one ever listened to me, I would probably teach the ducks how to follow their moms around. You know what I mean? I would teach someone something because I just think I know that it's a part of what God gave me to give to the world.
I think that's very important. I was perusing the website before preparing for the interview, and Empower, Energize, Excellence stuck out. Can you talk a little bit about those 3 principles and kind of how that works with the Power of People Consulting?
Absolutely. I know in my core, like I know that I was born with power. I know that. And if I didn't know that, I would have given up many different times in my life in the hard places. Because we all have times in our lives and we just have some hard things that happen to us, that we go through. And when you understand that you were born powerful and that you have enough power in you right now to change your life no matter what's going on, right? And I'm telling you, I could write a whole book about my life. I haven't gotten to the place I've done that yet, but I probably could. And unless I knew in those hard places that I could start again, that I could change, if nothing else, I could change my mind, right? I understood and now understand what it really means to have my power. And so for me to empower is to like infuse power into the world. So wherever I go, I'm going to tell people, no matter what your situation, because you know, sometimes we mix up our circumstances and situations with our being.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? I think that's a very powerful concept.
Right? What you are going through, what your situation, your circumstance, is not who you are. And for me, empowering you means getting to who you are so that you can use your power, empowering you. You can discover that power in you to then go to your situation, go to your circumstance and overcome it. Overcome it. And not allow life to just beat you down or beat you up, right? You're the one in control of your life. You really are. You really are. And really, so many people don't believe that. And as a result, you know, they live some really hard lives. So for me, that empower piece is just infusing, like lending my power source to you to say, you can do this thing. And energizing, you need energy, right? I remember when I was young in my doctorate degree, I'd gotten a Ph.D. from the University of Minnesota. I started my consulting company. You know, I was doing keynote talks and I was doing workshops and seminars. And after a keynote or a workshop, someone would come up to me and say, I love your energy. I love your energy.
It's definitely palpable.
You know, they'd say that to me. But as a young, you know, you just got a Ph.D., you feel like you're so accomplished. You know, you don't want someone telling you to love your energy. You're like, did you get my concept? Did you get my content? Do you understand that? But the truth of the matter is that unless your energy catches people, they won't listen to the content. The content doesn't matter anymore. Because it's the energy. We've all been in spaces where someone's energy is so negative, but the invitation and information they're trying to give or to give you is good information, but you can't even swallow it because the energy in the room is so bad, right? And so I do believe that my energy is what God gifted me with. And I don't have to, you know, I don't take drugs. I don't smoke, I don't drink. I don't take, you know, pop pills. I drink a cup of tea in the morning. This is what I do. And drink water. I wake up like this, right? And I really do believe that when you get a hold of your positive energy, that it gives you more kind of momentum to begin to transform your life, because you have what you need. You have the energy, you have the strength to do what it is you have to do today, right? You're not waiting on somebody. Like, no, I got it. I know I have my power. I know I've got my energy, and then it's time to go for it. So that is really kind of just a gifting to the world I do believe that God gave me. Mm-hmm.
Now, we've talked a little bit about some of the principles that kind of guide the way you do things and the way you offer things to the world. The book that you had come out not too long ago, The Power of People, 4 Kinds of People Who Can Change Your Life. Can you talk to me about not only the vision for that book, but where the idea even came from?
Oh, my goodness.
That's so specific of a title.
That's so specific of a title. Well, I'll tell you the story of the book, first of all.
Please.
Okay? So, after I finished my doctorate degree, and I'd written scholarly articles, and I'd written my dissertation, and I'd done all of that stuff, right? So I am at church. I am just finished my doctorate degree. I'm tired. And for anyone who's done a doctorate degree, or you've just accomplished something really big, you're just exhausted. So I am sitting there in church, and I am exhausted. But I go to church because I love the Lord, and I want to make sure that I'm getting fed spiritually. So there was a gentleman there. His name was Dr. Miles Monroe. And Dr. Miles Monroe that day was teaching. I didn't know Dr. Miles Monroe, right? I didn't know him at all. He had been a teacher at our church before, but I didn't know him, right? So Dr. Miles Monroe is teaching, amazing teaching, and he finishes up his message. I'm sitting way in the back of church because I'm tired. He finishes his message, and he's about to walk off the stage, and he comes back on the stage. And he says to the church, now in the church, there must be 2,000 people in this church. He says, God is calling someone in here to write a book. And you must write that book. So I thought, well, great. I sure wish that person would get their message so that he could finish up and we could go home because I'm tired. Right? And he says it again. God is calling you to write a book. And just as I am sitting here with you, looking at you and talking to you, just as clear as day, God says to me, I am talking to you. I want you to write a book. Now, at that moment, I was tired. So I simply said yes. That's what I said. I said yes. I said yes to God. I'm like, yes, I'll write a book. Now, I thought I would be writing a book about education, right? I'm an educator, right? I'd be writing a book about maybe the sociology of schools, or maybe about leadership, or about how people, the psychology of people, all that stuff that I specialize in. I thought that was the book I was writing. But I didn't know what the book was. And months later, I said to the Lord, well, I'm supposed to write the book. What am I supposed to write? And just as clear as day, God said to me, write a book. And the book is called The Power of People, 4 Kinds of People Who Can Change Your Life. And I sat down and I wrote that title out. And then I said to the Lord, well, that sounds really good, but exactly who are those 4 kinds of people? Because I certainly don't know who they are. Mm-hmm. And that's when God put it in my spirit to give to humanity these 4 types of powerful people. And those 4 types of powerful people are adders, subtractors, multipliers, and dividers. Whether you are here, you are in Egypt, you are in Pakistan, you are in China, you are in Liberia, on the streets of Monrovia, wherever you are in the Bahamas, Mexico, Guatemala, no matter where you are. And I've been lots of places, right? These are the only types of powerful people you're going to ever meet. Are adders, subtractors, multipliers, and dividers. So I sat down and I wrote exactly, now I didn't change a word, I wrote exactly what was put into my spirit to write. And that little book, which is called, I call it the Little Purple Book, has gone around the world and back and has dramatically helped people dramatically transform their lives, right? So if you are, I don't know, I have it on the table here. I have it on the table here.
Those at home can get a clue as to what, not only what we're talking about, but if they see it, they know to spot and purchase the purple book.
Of course, purchase it. Amazon, go on Amazon, get the book. It's there, just put it in. Go on my website, get the book. It's there, just put it in. But this little book right here, every page of this book just helps people figure it out. Because if your life right now, when you understand, first of all, your power, and the book just says 3 things. It says, 1, you were born powerful. So those days of feeling like, I don't know what to do, I'm hopeless, I'm helpless, those days are over. You have no excuse for failure, none whatsoever, right? Why? Because you get the power to create change in your life. You really can. And then you've got to figure out the people. But do you know who the first people you've got to figure out is? Who? Yourself. You got to figure out, am I an adder? Am I a subtractor? I remember in my early 20s, and man, I was attracting subtractors like nobody's business. You hear me? And this is before I wrote the book. After I wrote the book, and then I read the book for myself, then I figured out, oh, no wonder my life was a mess. No wonder. I had so many subtractors in my life. They were just taking everything. That's what subtractors do. They take everything. They take your energy. They take your money. They take your time. They take your resources. Some of them will take your spouse. They'll take every and anything that you allow them to take.
Tell the truth.
And I was surrounded by subtractors. So I had to do some personal work myself to get subtractors out of my life because it's about power. So the power to add, if you have adders in your life, guess what happens to your life? Your life just expands. It just goes, it gets more and more and more and more and more, right? You're blessed everywhere you go. Why? Because you're being an adder and you are adding adders, right? This is fascinating to me because last year, February of 2022, I made up my mind that I was going to reach over 1 million people with my teaching. 1 million people, right? And for me, that's expansion.
Mm-hmm.
And when you told me about this show and where this would air, as an adder, adding to me, adding to this work, you don't know it, but you're actually connecting to that vision I had. Over 1 million people all over the world would have access to this work. Isn't that something?
I think that's brilliant. I also am humbled by the opportunity to help advance not only the reach of your book, but also to share the amazing work that you've been doing for over 30 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And the book is also in Spanish. So
It's
our
in Spanish as well.
Friends or viewers that are watching, you can definitely purchase this book as well and share it with those amongst your network.
Absolutely. And my goal is to have it translated into any language that you and your community speaks. That's really my goal. Because when you understand power and how that power is working in your life, and you tap into the power of adding, imagine tapping, what you're doing right now, actually, this station is doing for us, it's tapping into the power of multiplication. Because when you tap into multiplication, just this one interview gets multiplied 100-fold, right? 2,000-fold around the world. Awesome. Just imagine in your life when your talent gets multiplied, when your energy gets multiplied, when your money gets multiplied. How awesome is that? How awesome is that? So helping and this is another important piece for me out of this book, is helping people get beyond personality to power. It doesn't matter to me what kind of personality you have.
Mm-hmm. I was just about to say, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Right? It doesn't matter to me. Because some people, they kind of overlook quiet people sometimes. But the truth is that quiet person might be your multiplier. Or they're attracted to like flamboyant people. You got the colors. And we're talking about, I'm an African woman, mm-hmm. right? We love color and style, and you see someone and they've got that look and you think, oh my goodness, I want to get to know her or him. And then it turns out they're a subtractor. And they're taking everything out of your life. And you think, but they look so, So we cannot allow someone's personality to get mixed up with their power. I'm interested in your power. It doesn't matter to me how you look. It doesn't matter to me who you know, your connections. I want to know about your power. And I can study you and tell you about your power, right? Because I've done it for so long to help people figure out. Your first person that you figure out is you. What is your power level? Now I'm telling you, no, I'm not a subtractor, for sure. I'm what I would call a severe, amazing adder, and I'm on my way to being a multiplier. And I'm just about there. And what multipliers do is that they take your vision and they work with you to make it a reality. So they take you from here in your vision to there, and they make it go quick too. So if you have a vision, it's not going to take you 10 years with a multiplier. That vision, you'll see that thing happening in a year, in 2 years, sometimes in a week. It's really fun.
I think that's a good sign for people to be able to recognize
yes.
if someone is taking something from my life, if they're adding something,
yes.
if they have the power to multiply.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I should be able to see these things, right? There should be evidence of what you're saying you are.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. I think when we talk about community, I would love to just shift a little bit and talk
mm-hmm.
about Girls in Action and how you are impacting some amazing young ladies across the metro. Can you talk about the work of Girls in Action?
And across the world.
Absolutely.
So once again, my life is my life. I was just telling this to my husband the other day. My life is my life because I do what God tells me to do. I really do. I take it very seriously. And when God tells me in my spirit that I'm supposed to do something, it doesn't matter to me if I have enough money. It doesn't matter who I know. I'm going to do it. Right? Mm-hmm. And so I got a call from my husband's alma mater, which is North High School, mm-hmm. right here in Minneapolis.
That is my alma mater. Go Polars.
Go Polars. Go Polars. And it was a very simple call that went something like, Dr. Verna, I'd like you to come and speak to our girls. We're inviting you and some of the other women leaders in the community to come and share your story. Well, I was a professor at the University of Minnesota. I finished my first book, The Power of People. I started my own consulting business. I had some things to share, and I love young people. So I said, sure. But I hadn't been in a high school for a while, right? Even though I'd been working on my doctorate degree, I really hadn't been in an everyday, daily in a high school. I studied in elementary schools, and I was going to be a principal, but not high school. And so I go to the school. They put all the girls in the auditorium, about 300 or 400 of them. And what I saw, it really impacted my spirit. I saw so many girls that had lost hope, that didn't know who they were, that were sad, that were conflicted. And my heart was so sad. And I knew that I had to do something. I didn't know what. And as I walked out that auditorium that day, in my spirit, there was a call. And the call was, what are you going to do about it? It's not enough to talk about it. What are you going to do about that? What are you going to do about helping those girls figure out who they really are? Find themselves in high school so they don't spend the rest of their life messed up. Mm-hmm. What are you going to do about that? And so once again, I said yes. I said yes. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I was going to do something. So I talked to the principal, and I said, if you would, let me create a program for you. I never intended. This is 18 years later. 18 years later, almost 6,000 girls later, all over the Twin City metro area. Right now, as I sit here right now, I have 21 different groups of girls meeting across the Twin Cities and St. Cloud.
That's what I wanted you to talk about. I know that there are so many,
of
different groups, and there are so many women coming alongside these young
Absolutely.
ladies, pouring into them consistently throughout this stretch of such a pivotal time in their lives.
Yes.
And I think not only the concept is so beautiful, but it is so necessary.
So necessary.
And I don't think it's often talked about enough how we as Black women come alongside one another.
Absolutely.
And how that sisterhood really changes the shape of many of our lives.
It changes the shape of our lives as women. And I told North High School, I'm like, I want to do something. But I can't do it alone. I have to bring women with me. Because it's the only way to do real work requires a community. And I said, I need a community of women, Black women like me. When I work with my Latina girls, I need a community of Latina women. Mm-hmm. My Latina girls need to relate to their women leaders. With my Hmong girls, my Asian girls, they need Hmong women, mm-hmm.
right?
I mean, with my East African girls, my African girls, they need African, not African American, East African women to work with them. With my Somali girls, they need Somali women working with them. So I have this, and if you're listening to me and you've been a woman leader, thank you. Because hundreds and hundreds of women leaders have come around me to actually then reach our girls. Teaching them about their power, teaching them that they're beautiful and they're valuable and they're important and they're lovable, teaching them to be confident, teaching them to graduate from high school, go to college without having babies. And for those who come to the program, they are already teen moms. We teach them that you can be an amazing teen mom and still graduate from high school and still go to college. And we've done this, and the girls see the sisterhood between the women, and then they actually learn how to become sisters to one another. I was just talking to a school this morning who was struggling with a group of girls, African girls. And so the woman leader said, Dr. Verna, I think that we're going to have to put the girls out of the program because they're just acting up. And these are all African girls, all immigrant African girls, by the way.
Dr. Verna, can you talk to me a bit about what community means to you?
Yeah, absolutely. First, I grew up in community, right? So my grandmother, in the Bahamas, every year we have hurricanes. To the rest of the world, it's like, oh no, there's a hurricane. Mm-hmm. In the Bahamas, we have hurricanes. And on the island, when we would have a hurricane, the Red Cross would ship over goods to us. Mm-hmm. And then my grandmother was the person who organized the goods from the Red Cross. And she would organize all of her grandchildren, sometimes 13, 14, 15 of us. And she would give us all a job, and we would put together bags of goods for everyone on the island. And then she would tell us to go and deliver these goods. And there would always be two of us together, to Auntie such and such and Uncle such and such. And she would make sure that everyone on the island got some goods. Now, what I didn't know she was teaching me was how to have a passion for humanity, how to care about people. It didn't matter to me if that, person was my real aunt or uncle. They were an elder. They were a cousin. They were a friend. They were community. And she taught me that people are people. There is one race. It's called the human race. There is no, races, black race, white race. That is pure social construct coming out of slavery to keep people oppressed. Mm. And the truth of the matter is that there's one race, it's the human race. And within the human race, there is community. That means that you care about people. You care about who's in your community. Absolutely. Whether that's your proximate community right here, whether that's your ethnic community, whether that's your geographical community, whether that's your friend community. So you're always, for me, everywhere I go, and my kids will say, Mom, how come you talk to everyone? You know everyone. Because as far as I'm concerned, everyone is in my community, right? So when I move around the world, when I go to my girls in Kenya, that's my community. Absolutely. I belong there. Mm-hmm. I think and here in the Twin Cities, it's fascinating to me. I didn't really understand this until the girls showed it to me. But the girls clearly showed me that there's a difference between the African community and the African American community. And apparently, there is separation there. Mm-hmm. Now, the young people, they know it. And here's what's so interesting. The young people would say to me, I would have Somali girls say to me, in Girls in Action, Dr. Verna, why do you think my parents say this and that and that and that about African Americans? And then I would have my African American girls say to me, Dr. Verna, why do you think my parents and people say this and that and that and that about African people? And the truth of the matter is that regardless of our ethnicity, we're still in the same community. And if you really, if we really wanted to get into it in this United States of America, if you happen to have brown or black skin, you're black. Period.
Absolutely.
Nobody's caring about, you're this and no, you are, when you show up black. It's a community. And so I think for us to kind of take off those, and I've had to do that in my life, which is why I really believe that I go anywhere I go and I feel totally comfortable, because I know that you're my community, right? Like you belong to me. I belong to you. Like if there's something that you need, look no further. It's in the community. And we teach our girls that too, by the way. It's like, you know what? Whatever you need is right in your community. Look no further. It's in your community. And it's powerful for me. Community is so important for me to be in community at all times. No matter where I am. And it's so funny when I first meet particularly young people, and I say to them, you know, you're in my family, you're in my community now. So if I see you at Cub Foods, or I see you, at Target, or if I see you at the store,
that's right,
and I see something going on, I'm gonna talk to you. And don't look at me like I'm crazy either, because I'm gonna talk to you. Yes, because you are in my community now. And they're like, okay, Dr. Verna, okay. And they don't believe it until I do it.
Until you do it. Just shifting a little bit about community, let's talk about your new book, Power Lessons for Life.
Oh.
You talked a little bit about the importance of power.
Yes.
You talked a bit about personal power and things like that. But what are some of the principles that we are sharing in this book?
Oh my goodness. First of all, it's a delightful little book. Okay, just so you know. And it just, what do you all say? It dropped. It just dropped. It just dropped in January 1st. So it's a little over a month old. And it's a lovely little book. I like the size, I like the look, but most importantly, what's inside is, you know how you ask yourself some questions like, if only I'd known that, I would have done that. If only someone had told me this, I would have done that, right? Absolutely. Like those life lessons that continue to move your life along in a positive way, in a prosperous way, things that keep you from making those mistakes. Like there's some stuff in your life that's happened that you think, man, why didn't they tell me that, right? It was like I tripped up, right? That one person, they tried to tell me to stay away from them and I didn't, So these are 10 life lessons that I offer to the world. Now, where do these life lessons come from? Right before the pandemic, I started a podcast. And my podcast is Dr. Verna's Virtues. And I started this podcast. I knew I was supposed to start a podcast. Then I got a call from my friend and colleague, Miss Shaletta. And Miss Shaletta says to me, Dr. Verna, let's do a podcast. And I said, well, Shaletta, absolutely, because it's already in my spirit and my vision to do a podcast. So then, I started doing my podcast. So then the pandemic hit, right? And I'm doing more and more and more podcasts. And people are saying to me, they see me at the grocery store, and they say, Dr. Verna, I love that podcast, but can you put it in a book for me? I want to read it again. I want to see it for myself. I want to read it. I want to highlight it. I don't want to forget it. Or I want to tell my children. Or I want to share with my community. And so I thought, okay, yes. The community is asking me to do this. Yes, I will do this. And so I thought, what would I call it? And of course, power lessons. These are all power lessons for your life. And then I had an artist come along. So I chose 10 lessons that I had talked about before in my podcast. And then I worked more on those lessons, and I actually wrote the book around them. But then I had an artist from London who I met, and she, Karen Caldwell is her name. She actually now lives here in the Twin Cities. And I said to her, you know what? I'd like to visualize those lessons. I'd like to give a visual of something that might symbolize that lesson. And in that visual, I think of my life going from the Bahamas, little girl, all the way here to the United States, and now back all over the world. And that little girl, to have that little girl in each of those pictures, in each of those illustrations. So literally, we were just talking about hurricanes. At the beginning of every lesson, there is a visual that symbolizes the lesson. And this lesson is called When the Storm Hits. That's a life lesson. Because you know what? The storm is going to hit.
That's the truth.
The storm is going to hit. No one gets through life without a storm. Now, your storm might be a tornado, a hurricane, it may be a tsunami, or maybe a blizzard if you're in Minnesota. But a storm is going to hit. And then the life lesson I provide to you, and then after the life lesson, and that's one life lesson, I actually give you an opportunity to write about it, right? Now that you've gotten this life lesson, what are you going to do with that life lesson? And some of these life lessons here's another one. True freedom. That's a life lesson. Like, how do you get to the place where you're just free? You're just free. You know some people who are so uptight? They're like, they're just like uptight.
Absolutely.
And you think, you're just not free. You need to be free. And you feel like, symbolically, getting them out of that personal prison. Get out of your personal cell. Don't put yourself in your own prison. Set yourself free. How do you do that? Read the book. Oh, I love this one. This is a beautiful one. It's called Stay Younger Longer. That's a life lesson, right? And, my grandmother lived until she was 94. And you see I have gray hairs now, right? Yeah. I love my gray hairs, just
Absolutely.
so you know. I love my gray hairs. And when I first started, my PR person said, Dr. Verna, you're getting some gray. Maybe we should be dyeing your hair, for television and all this other stuff. I'm like, absolutely not. No. I love my gray hair. But how do you stay younger longer? In your spirit, in your approach, right? In your way. How do you stay younger longer? And the Power Lesson offers that to you. So this is my million book, right? This is getting this little book of lessons that's going to guide your life for the rest of your life. And what's beautiful about this book, of course, it also connects to my first book, which is really, really nice. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but it ended up connecting really, really great. So this book here, get it on Amazon. Let's get this thing virtual. Get it all over the world. It's also in Kindle, too, so you can download it.
I think that's wonderful.
Thank you.
I want to give you one final thing. If you were reflecting back on your younger self, what is something that you would wish to say?
I think I would have found a way to forgive white people sooner.
That's powerful.
Right? Because for so many years, after going through so much racism here in this country, I got an unforgiving spirit. And I had to learn how to forgive white people so that I could move my own life, or move my life more quickly and get more done. Because unforgiveness traps you, and it doesn't allow you the freedom to connect and to have community, because you're always guarded, because you don't want to be hurt again. And so you just live in unforgiveness. And when I finally forgave white people, right, as a collective, for all the stuff that I've had to go through, I was able to just be free wherever I am. And I could go to any audience, anywhere, and just be myself and just say what I want to say and be myself without any fear, without any intimidation, nothing, because I was free. And had I done that sooner, I believe that I could have gotten more done. Literally, I tell people all the time, it was a white man who said to me one day, "What do you want in life?" And I told him I want to change the world, of course. And he says to me, well, as a black woman, guess what? You're going to need a PhD to get you farther faster because you're a very smart person. And I said to this white Jewish man, I said, yes, sir, you are correct. He says, well, you know what? Let me see what I can do. But I'm telling you, had I not unleashed and had I not just given over and forgiven white people, I wouldn't have even heard his question. I wouldn't have heard his question. And I would have given up access to a PhD that the university paid for that I didn't have to pay a dime for. Coming from a question from a white Jewish man. You see what I'm saying? So we may be, this is just a message just to the world. Your bridge to your future may come from someone or some people whose people have hurt you. And it's important for you to personally forgive. Forgive. So that you're available when that opportunity comes and they create a bridge for you, you can walk over that bridge. Because why? Because you've forgiven. You've forgiven. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I thought it was really important for you to join me not only during this time, but with the world opening up again after COVID.
Yes.
And so many transitions were made during that time and subsequently after, right? People where offices were full of people are now fully at home or split the time in the office or at home. But I think a lot of people started to do a lot of internal work, starting to channel things because we had the opportunity to sit with ourselves, right? When the world was paused, everybody's inside, and if you are here in Minnesota like we are, you're freezing. So you get a lot of time to think. And I know that it is really important to not only do the self-work, but to also find resources and to find people that are sharing information that's relevant to us. And so in a lane where I don't think we often see that, it has been a pleasure to not only talk about your books and to talk about the work that you've been doing over the last 30 years, but to give people a glimpse into the day-to-day of what it really looks like with somebody who not only is teaching this, but also living it out every day.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
yes, ma'am.
Dr. VERNA, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you, Ms. Anna, for having me. I really
has been
appreciate
wonderful.
it. Thank you.
That is all the time that we have today. A special thanks to Dr. VERNA Price and her amazing team at The Power of People Consulting and her amazing young women that she works with at Girls in Action. I hope that something that's been shared today you have found informative, inspiring, or encouraging. As always, I look forward to connecting again with you soon. I have been Anna Orr, and this is airing on OROMIA11.